Alright, so last week I posted a video exploring the influence of Martin Scorsese's After Hours on the 1987 teen comedy 3 O'Clock High. And when I rewatched After Hours to prep for that video, something caught my eye, and I've not stopped thinking about it since. And it happens in the scene you're looking at right now. Alright, here it comes. Did you see that? Let me rewind and I'll take you through it. Alright, what we're seeing here is another classic Scorsese long take at the very end of After Hours. And right at the end, as we're backing down a hallway heading out of the office, we see a lady walking down the aisle towards us, and she disappears, and a man in a black coat walks into the shot. So what happened here? Why would Scorsese cut his long take there just to have this guy walk in? Where did the lady go? Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Seriously, I've been thinking about this for 2 weeks now, and I cannot get it out of my mind. And today, I'm going to go full Zapruder on this and try and figure out exactly what's happening. Alright, first up, let me set the scene. After leaving the office the previous day, Griffin Dunn's character, Paul, has been out all night going from one drama to the next. He's had to deal with a maniac cab driver, a bouncer at a bar who tries to shave his head into a mohawk, an artist who makes plaster of Paris sculptures, a somewhat sad cocktail waitress, a suicidal date, a couple of burglars, an overflowing toilet, and a vigilante mob led by a lady who drives a Mr. Softy truck. After all that, and rather than just calling in sick, Paul comes back to the office, right where the movie started an hour and 37 minutes earlier, bringing us full circle and taking us into the credits. My first thought was that the cut was just a glitch in the copy I was watching. Maybe it didn't rip correctly and a little bit of the data was lost. So I pulled up other copies of the scene that people had posted on YouTube, and the same cut is in every version that I could find. But just to be sure, I got a copy of the song that's playing in the scene, which is the first movement of Mozart's Symphony No. 45 in D major, and synced it up with the film. Zooming down to the waveforms, you can see that the two tracks match up perfectly. Since there are no gaps in the soundtrack, that means there aren't any gaps in the video either. Therefore, the cut we're seeing is intentional. Scorsese meant for it to be there. So if this final shot of the man in the black coat is meant to be there, maybe those extra frames were added simply to make the music cue line up correctly. Let's take a listen again, but keep in mind that this particular movement of Mozart's symphony is in 2/2 time, so we're going to count it with 2 beats per measure, with each beat timed to a half note. So what we see is that the cut from the lady coming down the hall is after the first beat of the measure. Now you might be able to get away with putting a cut in the middle of a song, but cutting in the middle of a measure always just feels awkward. This point's even clearer when we see that the extra frames that Scorsese added with the man in the black coat give us exactly what we need, not only to get to the end of that measure, but get to the end of that section of the movement. So that when we cut to black, we're going to hear the first notes of the next section of the movement. In conclusion, the explanation that the shot of the man in the black coat was added so that the scene could end on the beat seems like it might be legit. That was until I read an interview with Steadicam operator Larry McConkey, where he said that Scorsese had already picked out the music and was playing it over some speakers on the set while he shot the sequence. If the music was already picked out, why would they stop filming before the point in the song where they knew they were going to cut to black? The man in black is on the screen for exactly 29 frames, which equals 1 second of film. Surely they didn't just stop filming at the exact moment, just 1 second shy of what they needed. Also, keep in mind that this entire scene was shot well after the rest of the movie was done. Scorsese was struggling to find an ending he liked for After Hours, and he brought the crew together for an additional 4 days to film the last section of the movie. Time and budgets may have been tight, but it seems unlikely that they would have filmed for 4 extra days and still failed to get the shot they were looking for by just 1 second. But if the unlikely did happen and they didn't have the last second of footage that Scorsese really needed so he could end the take on the right beat, what would they do? After already bringing everyone back for 4 more days of shooting, to get the ending he wanted, I just don't see Scorsese calling everyone back again, rebuilding and relighting the set, and doing the shot all over again. No, I suspect they'd likely go with the next best option. They would pull the footage from a previous take. Scorsese had Larry McConkey do his Steadicam shots in his other movies too, including the classic Copacabana shot in Goodfellas. Now, McConkey said they rehearsed the Goodfellas shot several times and then actually shot it about 8 times. Assuming that the same practice applied on the set of After Hours, we can guess there was at least one other take that Scorsese could have used. And if that's the case, it's possible that they just took a second from the end of a previous take and spliced it on to the end of the take they liked. But if that was the case, why would you choose this shot? An empty hallway would have been a much more seamless option to use. No, I'm still not convinced, and I'm leaning more and more toward thinking that including the man in the black coat was a deliberate decision. Now, Paul's normal world is pretty dull. His apartment is dull, his work is dull, everything about him is dull. It's only when he takes a tornado-like ride in a taxi does he enter into a world that's colorful and a little bit dangerous. It's like he's gone from the black and white Kansas to the Technicolor world of Oz. In fact, there are obvious references to The Wizard of Oz in this movie.
You've seen the film, haven't you?
The Wizard of Oz? Yeah, I've seen it.
As well as more subtle references too, like the use of yellow, as in the Yellow Brick Road, and rainbows. The name Gail,
My name is Gail!
Lady, no!
which is Dorothy's last name and the name of Catherine O'Hara's character, and of course, a strong desire for the main character to get back home again.
Would you just give me a break? I really just want to go home.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. I could lose my job.
Now, one possible reason for the last cut is to reflect the ending to The Wizard of Oz. Remember, at the end of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's back in Kansas, and she has all of her memories of her time in Oz, but her memories are linked to the people around her in Kansas. Now, what if the man in black could be that bridge between Kansas and Oz for Paul? If that's the case, we need to find where the man in black is during his night in Soho. Now, one of the critical scenes for Paul is when he's trying to get the phone number for a friend so he can get away from the craziness of this night. He calls information, and while he's trying to remember the number he's just heard, Catherine O'Hara keeps saying random numbers to him, making him forget the phone number.
5, 8, 6, 2,
Don't.
9,
Don't.
3, 8, 0.
And if you look at the wall directly behind them, you'll see there's a long black kimono, which is very similar to the overcoat worn by the man in the final shot. Now, do I think Scorsese added this 1 second of film to the very end of his movie to reflect that kimono? No, I don't. It's possible that that is what he did, but if that's the explanation, I think it went over everyone's head. Now, for my final explanation, I'm just going to go dark and say the man in black is death. All night, Paul has avoided some pretty hairy situations. In addition to the laundry list I went through earlier, he's also witnessed a murder, was almost killed by a set of keys being dropped off a balcony, was entombed like a mummy in a papier-mâché body cast, and even fell out of the back of a van careening through downtown Manhattan. And despite all that, he came through relatively unscathed. The taxi ride Paul takes down to Soho is his journey into the underworld. There are skulls everywhere in this movie, and Catherine O'Hara even spells it out for him.
You're dead, pal.
I'm what?
Gail.
Death has been hounding him all night, and he's avoided it. But as everyone who's seen Final Destination knows, you might be able to dodge death once or twice, but it eventually catches up to you. So what makes me think the man in black is death? Well, the black coat for one. Why is anyone wearing a black overcoat in this office? Yes, it rained the night before, but literally no one else in this office that morning is wearing an overcoat. No one is even carrying an umbrella. At most, we see a couple of guys in suit coats, which they take off and drape over their chairs. Wearing a black overcoat, especially on a nice day, just seems like something death would do. Plus, almost everyone in this office is carrying a briefcase or a bag. The lady in pink has one. The guy with the newspapers is carrying one. This guy has one. Even the lady in the plaid skirt has one over her shoulder. But this guy, his hands are empty, and that's just weird. The other thing that bothers me about the guy is where is he coming from? He's not arriving at the office like a lot of the other people we see in the shot are. If he was arriving at the office, we see him coming in from one of the main entrances, like the hallway where the lady in the plaid skirt just walked in from. Even with the camera backing down that hallway, if he was just arriving at work, we'd expect to see him come into the shot from behind the camera, perhaps on the left side of the screen. But this guy is coming out from a gap in the cubicles on our right. Now, a few seconds earlier, the camera actually showed this area from a different perspective, and you can see where he was. He's coming out from a bullpen, a dead end of cubicles along the windows. That means he was already in the office, hanging out in that cubicle, wearing an overcoat. If that's where his desk is, why didn't he take the coat off like literally everyone else in his office does when they get to their desks? Why? Because he's Death, and Death wears his coat everywhere he goes. And the thing is, I think Death is going to be disappointed again. Death is obviously heading towards Paul's desk, but Paul isn't there. While the camera was exploring the office, Paul got up and left. Take a look. Paul's desk is the second one from the end. There's some roses to the right of his computer. There's a phone to his left, and what looks like a folder on top of his file cabinet. A few seconds later, when the camera comes back by his desk, we can see the flowers, the phone, the folder, and even his jacket on the chair, but Paul's gone. Death may be on the move, but once again, he's too late. I'm not sure I've found an explanation that really works for me, but of all of them, I kind of like the idea that somehow Paul has been able to get the upper hand on Death, so I'm going to go with that explanation as my final answer. If you'd like to vote for one of my explanations, or if you have a theory you'd like to share, please post it in the comments below. I'd love to hear them and to know that other people obsess about dumb stuff like this as much as I do. So thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again sometime for another episode of A Million Movies.